I talked a little bit more about fiction I've been reading and some of these other things. And anyway, we're a bit more back to normal this week. Maybe we'll still get to cover some more fun bits and pieces. But I thought today I was going to cover a topic that's come up from time to time as I speak to folks around the industry. Of I occasionally get to meet people who are building their own SEO testing capabilities in-house, and there's different pros and cons of this, different challenges, different opportunities. And I've had this conversation a few times, and whenever I spot that, right, whenever I find those times when I'm having the conversation multiple times in private, I sometimes think, maybe this would make a good topic for broadcast. So that's where we are, see where we get to. I am going to share my screen today because I have a few resources that I was going to talk through. But before I do that, the standard kind of who are we, what are we doing here, and more importantly, how can you stay up to date with everything that's going on from me and from SearchPilot. So my name is Will Critchlow. Probably most of you know that since you've ended up here, but I'm founder and CEO at SearchPilot, and SearchPilot is SEO testing software for big enterprises, big websites. So we help the biggest websites in the world prove the value of SEO by running controlled scientific experiments. And we have a lot of fun doing it. If you want to know more about SearchPilot, if you want to see a demo, or you want to follow up and check out some of our resources, I've got a load of material on what SEO testing is, how it works, other things you can learn from our experiences, some big customer success stories, and probably the most tactically useful is you can sign up to our email list. And what you'll find there is information about, in particular, tests that we've run. So every 2 weeks, we publish a new SEO test case study result. And these are super useful. That's basically the resource that I wish had existed when I was still an SEO consultant. It's the next best thing to running your own tests. It gives you the opportunity to see those ideas, see the hypotheses, see the results for some particular site. Obviously, it doesn't always generalize to everything else, otherwise we wouldn't need to test. But in my opinion, it's one of the more valuable free resources out there in the SEO industry, and certainly that's what we're striving to make it. So if that sounds something of interest to you, if you want those resources, you want to demo, you want to get our case studies by email, head on over to searchpilot.com/live, where you can get all of those resources and tons of valuable stuff. As far as this is concerned, so what I try and do is come on a call like this roughly every week, normally at about this kind of time, so about 4:15 on Tuesday afternoon UK time, which is where I'm based, which is about 11:15 a.m. East Coast time in the US, about 8:15 in the morning Pacific time. And you can get these live streams either on my Twitter, where I'm at Will Critchlow, my LinkedIn, also Will Critchlow there, or SearchPilot's YouTube channel, and it simul streams to all of those places. And so whatever's most convenient for you. Also, if you register over on searchpilot.com, you can get this stuff sent to you by email as well. Anyway, hope something there has been useful to folks, but really let's dive into the meat of what we're talking about today. So what I wanted to talk about, as I said, is buying versus building. And this is specifically as it relates to the tools to support testing. So I'm just going to share my screen and pull up I've got a few things I want to talk through today. The first is I have been really loving some of the resources that come from Ronnie Kahavi's training materials. I'm going to talk more about that in a bit more detail as I get further into it. But I want to highlight this deck in particular. So I put this out on LinkedIn during the week and got a ton of engagement off it. And I've been just really, really impressed by some of the thinking that's gone into this. So it's interesting to me, operating in the SEO testing space, to look at the CRO testing market. So conversion rate optimization, or CRO, otherwise called user experience testing, conversion rate testing, CRO testing, and sometimes folks just call it A/B testing, right? It's kind of traditional website testing, to the extent that you can have traditions on the internet, I suppose. And the interesting thing is that although SEO has probably been around longer, certainly as long as conversion rate optimization, CRO testing has always been a fundamental part of how CRO works, which is interestingly different to SEO, where SEO has been around for you know, probably goes as far as to say decades before really uh, anybody was doing testing in a kind of rigorous, structured way. And I mean, I think we at SearchPilot were among the first to be doing this outside of a handful of big tech companies who are doing it in-house. And so it's interesting that although the SEO and CRO industries are maybe the same kind of age, the CRO testing and particularly CRO testing tool markets is much more mature than the SEO tools market, with a good number of big competitors, a bunch of folks who've raised big VC money or have grown very large. And so it's really interesting for me to look at that because we're earlier on that journey, frankly, and there is less competition in our market. And SearchPilot is trying to blaze a trail into a whole new area of things. And that comes with pros and cons. Mainly, I enjoy it. It's fun trying to blaze that kind of trail and beat our own path and create something that new that people want. But it does make it interesting for me to be able to look that little bit further ahead and see what might be coming down the track. So anyway, I came across this presentation by Ryan Lucht. It was given when he was at, I guess you say that as chrometrics.com. And I'll give a bit more, he's moved on from there now, and I'll give a bit more context on what he's doing now and where exactly this presentation came from in a minute. But first, I wanted to look at a few of the things he talks about because I'm really aligned with him on this. And it's nice for me to have an example of someone who's working on something that's so similar to what we do, but who isn't even slightly a competitor. Just means I have no compunction, no problem with calling it out as really interesting and great work. So the first thing I was going to show was just this punchline of what, in his experience, enterprise clients end up doing. As he says, they usually end up buying a third-party tool to get more experiments live. And this meshes with my experience in SEO testing. Most folks find that they can run more tests and get more winners as a result of increased test cadence and improved test sensitivity by partnering with a tool like SearchPilot. Our biggest pitches tend to center on those kind of key arguments. Run more tests, get more winners. And so, you know, Ryan talks about test velocity and the fact that a lot of programs focus on running more tests, getting more tests live, and that this idea of fat tails, this is what he's basically saying here is that the fat tails of results, which comes from an academic paper that I've referenced separately, which is that the majority of the wins come from a small number of the experiments, definitely backs up this idea that running more tests is a good idea. And this data shows over 90% of all the positive impact of most testing programs comes from the top 5% of experiments. So if you're not running, you have to go looking for these experiments, basically. You have to go looking for these 1 in 20 that bring almost all of the reward. I talked about this in an SEO context in my presentation that I called SEO Moneyball. This was originally a MozCon presentation. The video is available online now, and I've published it as a post on the SearchPilot website as well. And I talked about this idea of speed mattering. This actually is the same. This link here is to the same academic research that Ryan was talking about. And this was us celebrating with one of our customers on how many tests they'd been running over this time period. And I kind of basically said that getting to the point of having a testing cadence as a top level KPI on your experimentation program is somewhere towards the top of the SEO maturity curve. And I'll probably write about this more soon about the testing maturity curve and the SEO maturity curve and how they kind of come together. But anyway, if you want to see more about this is a post on the SearchPilot website called Moneyball is the Future of SEO. And you can see the slides, and I think the video is in here somewhere as well. So basically, that's all a very long way around of saying that I agree with Ryan that getting more tests live is a big part of the objective, and it's a big part of the reason why some folks might look to outside tools and to buy rather than build. not right for everyone, of course, and some people probably should build. And I really loved this slide from Ryan of some examples about ways that you can what makes it different. Why might Amazon, Spotify, Netflix, Meta, why might they build their own experimentation tools? Why might they want to buck the trend of what we're saying and seeing here? And these were four signs, but I particularly like yeah, the first three. Is your CEO like deeply involved in experimentation and actually talking about velocity and impact? And does the CEO teach experimentation 101 to new hires? That's apparently something that the Reed Hastings has done at Netflix, or even built the first version of the tool themselves. Zuck apparently did that at Meta, and this is definitely something that we're pushing for as well. Is part of our product vision, I think, is seeing our data, our dashboards, and our work fundamentally showing up higher in the organization, showing up in earnings calls, at board meetings, in um, public company filings, those kinds of things. So I'm kind of excited about that for the long run. But I think what is kind of going unsaid here is that if this isn't you, if at the moment the experimentation culture is not this deep, then to have the pace and cadence that you're going to need to win against some of your competitors, then partnering could make a lot of sense. And so um, the rest of this deck also excellent. I highly recommend reading all of it, and I'm going to tweet out the links to everything I show you here today. Um, and it has some other bits and pieces that are a bit more conversion rate centric, though there's still some things that I have found useful for me as well. So um, yeah, highly recommend checking out this deck. As I say, I'm going to tweet that out from at Will Critchlow as well. Um, so this deck came from Ronnie Kahavi's amazing resources, and he's just published so much of this stuff. It's probably one of the best LinkedIn follows I can recommend if you're in experimentation. And I also wanted to talk through a few other bits and pieces that came from his presentations. He had this great deck, uh, or this is just not one deck, like series of information around whether to build or buy. So I'm going to get deeper into this in a second. I think when it comes to SEO experimentation, aside from those questions around how baked into the culture is it, how senior does that experimentation culture go in your organization, it's also important to understand some of the opportunities and constraints that come with different approaches. So some of the reasons that we find folks might want to buy rather than build is the um, the all-in cost is obviously a big part of it. You might everything is seems easier to build. I can build it in a weekend. The classic hack and use refrain. Everything is harder and takes longer than you think it's going to do, even when you factored in the fact that things take longer and are harder than you thought they were going to be. And so, um, yeah, you start thinking about the cost of even just a handful of engineers to build something, data scientists, and the like, and very quickly you're into significant cost that outstrips even quite expensive tool budgets quite often. More importantly, though, in my opinion, it's very easy to get cost centric in business, but I think the revenue and the upside side is typically actually much more impactful. And the higher you got the business, the more the growth and the upside opportunities are the things that folks care about. And this is where it comes into, are you able to take a test end to end in terms of both deploying it and analyzing it within the team that is responsible and accountable for those results? So if you're accountable for organic search traffic, that team needs to be able to do testing end to end, in my opinion. So that's from designing the tests, ideation, specifying the tests, building the tests, rolling them out, analyzing them, and hopefully pushing the winning test out as well. And one of the ways to do that is to work with a tool like ours. The other way is to obviously staff it up with a large team internally as well. And then the final, maybe not final benefit, but the other key benefit is that we're really specialist at what we do. And this, as I said, is a new and emerging field. And so while there's a lot of folks out there who have worked on conversion rate testing tools in one form or another, the number of folks who've worked deep in SEO testing is way smaller. And so the kind of opportunities that brings are in the statistics and mathematical analysis. So we're now on, I forget what version of our analysis engine, where we started with kind of off the shelf tools, um, like causal impact, for example, that I know many folks are still using. We published a blog post actually about having doubled our test sensitivity compared to basic causal impact. And we've got some, I think I talked the other week about some updates we've got coming now that are potentially doubling that again, but certainly some major sensitivity and accuracy improvements versus even our prior model. So we're investing in that R&D, and we're hugely highly incentivized to continue doing that and to make sure that we roll out those benefits to our whole customer base. So having that kind of continuous R&D engine is a big part of it, and that depth and focus applies across the board. We've talked before about being the SEO testing tool by SEOs for SEOs. I have a background in SEO consulting. Our CTO, Tom Anthony, our COO, Craig Bradford, our head of customer success, Emily Potter. All of these folks have years of SEO consulting experience. In our professional services team run by Emily, the depth of experience is huge, both before SearchPilot. And folks like Sam Nemza have been around with us since we were still the SEO agency. But also, I think that team is now probably the group of people with the most SEO testing experience on the planet, running across wide range of customers and different industries, different websites, and so forth. And that brings ideation benefits and analysis benefits as well. So all kinds of stuff. This uh, isn't a sales pitch. I'm actually putting both sides. I do think there are cases where we would say to folks, look, you probably should build this internally. I had a call with LinkedIn, and they're definitely at a scale where they've got a mature experimentation program. They've got the ability to staff it up and resource it. And um, there's every chance that building is right for them. But I think it's important to have your eyes open to the upside and the challenges of all these different ways. Anyway, so the first slide deck that I showed you, Ryan's deck, came from Ronnie's resources. And you can follow all of these links. As I say, I'll share the main links on Twitter later, but all of this is very well linked together. So you can navigate around to the different decks, the Google Drive folders that hold broader resources, and you can kind of navigate up and down and around that as well. This is really interesting though. So the first set of slides I showed you were from agency analysis of when to buy versus when to build. This particular one is one element of that course where they brought in vendors and asked them to present their answers to a range of questions. So they used their experience here to talk about how lucky is the company to be around. I talked about this last week in relation to SearchPilot in terms of our funding structure, and our sustainability means that although we're a small company, we're around for the long term. They talk about the cost model, how much would it cost to use these different tools on a particular size and scale of websites, and then some other specific questions. Some of these are more CRO specific, but that's fine. I found this so interesting. These decks that there's 10 of them. I'm not going to cover all of them, but I have got them kind of all open in my tabs here. I might show some of them. Also, just kind of the transparency, showing the prices, and that for this not huge website, all of these tools are in the low to mid six-figure a year ranges in dollars, and I think this is clearly tied to the huge amount of value that you can bring with a testing program of basically when you get that well run. So I found, as I say, I found this super interesting. The level of detail that these vendors have gone into in terms of their differentiation, why they are the right answer, how their models work, what features they have, and then specifically answering the questions that the feature questions come up. These are a bit more CRO centric, but just really interesting. And to close the loop, so I mentioned that that Ryan, the author of the first presentation I showed, has actually moved on. He's now actually at EPO, which is one of the vendors that presented to Ronnie's class. And I think this is their kind of key differentiator, being data warehouse native, which is kind of interesting. This is I love a lot of the marketing material coming out of EPO. Again, as I said, it's really interesting seeing folks who are running businesses that are quite similar to ours, quite similar to SearchPilot, but not a competitor at all, because in a different space. And yeah, like a lot of their messaging. And our approach is quite similar, although we message it slightly differently, because we are aiming to be the SEO testing platform for larger websites and therefore bigger businesses. We've taken a very integration first approach to a lot of these things. So we figured that we can't just work with Google Analytics, for example. We have to integrate with other analytics platforms, whether that's Adobe Analytics that we can have a direct integration with, or data warehouses, in-house analytics tools, whatever those might be. And we've got a number of kind of custom connectors that are working with individual customers. So we're not scared of custom integrations. We're not scared of custom contract setups and so forth. And so it's really interesting to see some of this kind of stuff. So yeah, as I said, Ryan is now at EPO, and I've really liked a lot of their material. So I'm going to be looking to see what I can learn from a lot of their marketing as well. So yeah, I think we kind of covered a broad range of the kind of topics here in buy versus build. I think when you really nail it down, what you're trying to figure out is, in your particular organization, which is going to give you the best ability to run the best quality tests at the best speed and cadence. And for many organizations up to a certain size and dedication to testing, that's going to be a third-party vendor, because you're going to have greater sensitivity, greater analytics capabilities, and greater ability to roll out tests, plus supported by experts, professional services, and so forth. And then there's a certain size where it does make sense to integrate that, as Ryan put it. If your CEO built the first version of your testing platform, like Zuck supposedly did at Meta, there's a pretty good chance that that internal tool is going to be more tightly coupled to your code base. You're actually going to be able to go faster. It's going to be more accurate, those kinds of things. So that's kind of yeah, it in a nutshell. As I mentioned earlier on, if you want more of these resources, you can head on over to searchpilot.com/live, and this has a load of the resources. So if you sign up using this form, you can see the SearchPilot platform in action. But probably more interesting and useful to a lot of folks right now is the resources that we have here. So you can read about some of our customer successes. I particularly check out this link that we've got a load of great stuff. We've got some travel, we've got some jobs, we've got some local listings, case studies and stories of customers getting some really cool successes. And we've got resources on how SEO testing works, introductions that you can share around, simple PDF, as well as I mentioned before, our catalog of test results that you can browse and now search through as well, which is quite cool, as well as signing up to the email list, which will get you these before everybody else. They come into your inbox every couple of weeks. So if you want to see the platform in action, that's the form at the top. If you want the resources, they're just here at the middle. This is all at searchpilot.com/live. And everything else I've mentioned today, all of Ronnie's resources and Ryan's resources, I'm going to tweet out at Will Critchlow. So follow me there if you want those. And I will be back here most weeks at this time, 4:15 in the afternoon, UK time, 8:15 a.m. Pacific time, 11:15 a.m. on the East Coast. And I look forward to chatting to you all again soon. Take it easy.